There we are. Hey, y'all. It's good to see you. Since live performance, it's definitely kaput. And give me one sec. I got some technical issues here going on. There we go. So this is brand new technology I'm using here, and got to figure out all of the different sounds that are coming in. But this is what we're doing here. This is what we're talking about. I've launched this program. It's broadcasting from my very own temporary home studio. This is a live stream series called Flex, Adapt with Intent, and I'd like to include you in the conversation. The overall goal of this is going to be to contemplate performing arts during uncertain times. How are we adapting? For example, moving our performance from the live audience to the live stream. Can you do it? How do you do it? Is it successful? Is it sustainable? My plan is to have candid discussions and I really talk about the topic with honesty. We can also find ways to add some live performance as well, and that's based on your interest. We'll also take questions from the audience. So tonight, I would like you to welcome my friend, George Hrab, and he is multi-instrumentalist, songwriter, recording artist, and podcaster. And let's make sure we can hear you quite well. How's it going here tonight?
Can you hear me? You sound great. Can you hear me all
I
right?
hear, I hear you just fine. It's great.
It
It's nice to
works.
see. It works. It's nice to see you. Yeah,
Like,
I got all butterflies here working on getting the video to the intro video, and all of a sudden it was coming through in my headphones twice.
oh, okay.
Therefore, I
That's
had to figure out where the other place was coming from.
twice as good that way. Twice as good that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I didn't know where I was. So hopefully that did not damage or disrupt the YouTube stream. Um, Somebody can tell me if it did. uh, so anyway, tonight we're here. We're going to talk to George, and for those who don't know, you are host and producer of the Geologic podcast.
That's right.
Okay. It's pretty much a one man show. You got a little help, I know. Drummer for the Philadelphia Funk Authority, guitarist and piano and songwriter as George Hrab, songwriter
Right.
and solo artist. Um, as well as you have quite a background in music, whereby you are considered, as some would say, a completely professional musician, whereby you make your living doing this sort of thing. But
Right.
also,
So 4 months ago, yeah.
yeah. And then the only other part that we should mention is your stints as a host, MC, a host for many events within the skeptic community as well.
Yeah.
So 4 months ago, the bottom fell out of every bit of that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It was quite astounding how quickly it sort of switched. And I think we were all in that position of not knowing what the extent of the impact was going to be. And I think in the back of our minds it was a potentiality of being this bad, but not a possibility. And now we quickly realized it was a possibility and a reality. So this is the longest I've gone in my since probably being 4 years old of not performing in front of people. I mean, from I was going back in my brain like trying to think,
Yeah. Yeah.
'cause even at school, even in first and second grade, there were always choral concerts. There were always some kind of band concert or
Yeah.
some kind of play or something every 2 3 months. And this is the longest since I was probably three. I went to a musical preschool, so even that had
Oh,
performance. So I think
wow.
this is the longest I've gone without being in front of people, performance-wise. I mean, we've had the virtual things, which are wonderful, but
Yeah.
not to be in front of an audience. It's very strange. It's very
It's very
strange.
strange. Yeah. And so aside from the lack of income from all of those things, there's a lack of I'll use the word flex again, of like flexing our muscles and actually doing the work that keeps us going to the next
Right.
place, right?
Right. I mean, I haven't played drums in whatever it's been for 3 months, 4 months, which is the Philadelphia Funk Authority is so busy that I never set up drums at home and practice because we're playing
Yeah.
3 4 times a week. So it's just something I just sort of never did really with any
Yeah.
regularity in the last decade or so. And so that sort of has not been a part of my regular regular approach to my daily life. I play guitar and piano every day, which has been great. So that's, and I'm getting nervous now to come back to playing drums because it's been so long. So hopefully I can shed a little bit before we need to play.
It's not like you can actually set them up where you live. I know that,
And
right?
I can't, but I sort of, yeah, I haven't.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, a little strange. I gotta get the practice pad out and just do some rudiments and get in the habit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I, not to talk about me, but I've been taking lessons for the last year, and all of a sudden I was like, I'm gonna get so good at this during this time because I've got nothing else to do. And then all of a sudden I had so much to do that I don't think I've practiced in
Right.
a
It's
couple of
amazing.
weeks.
What I think is interesting about people like us that sort of are self-employed is we've learned to fill the vacuum,
Mm,
before this stuff was going on. So my day to day isn't that very different because it's been this open
right.
calendar. You sort of have to fill it with something that keeps your mind occupied. The weekends, obviously, and the Thursday through Sunday are very different now for me because those are wide open. So that's kind of strange. My nights are kind of not occupied, and that's strange. But the day to day is very similar, and I've realized that in the same way that I would find projects for myself, a year ago to fill the time during the day, and I have certain rules that I kind of
Yeah.
instantiated in my life 20 years ago to make sure that I'm not sitting in front of the TV at 2 in the afternoon on a Tuesday, which is a very tempting thing sometimes. You kind of have these
Yeah.
self-imposed structures that you sort of need to have as a self-employed person. And those have been very helpful in terms of
Oh,
dealing with
understood.
the day to day, because
Yeah.
it's like the gig that you might have had that you would do all this work towards in terms of preparation isn't there. So now you have this preparation window. So what do you do? So for me, I started this YouTube series. I started just learning songs. I did some projects at home. I modified the podcast thing. I come on shows like this. I do
Yeah.
interviews. It's interesting that you know, in the same way that however much stage space a band gets, they will use. So if a band gets a 10-foot wide stage, we'll use every foot of it. If we get a 30-foot wide stage, we'll use every foot of it. It's amazing that there's this
Yeah.
stage vacuum that exists. And it's the same thing, at least for me, in terms of my day to day, that there is this time sort of vacuum that exists, and you just sort of fill it by either painting your living room or learning, a side of a record or whatever it may be. And that's been nice that I've had this training for this kind of weird pandemic living.
Yes. And one of the other things too I think about the training is that you from being a podcaster are sort of in the habit of speaking to no one. In other words,
Yeah,
there's no back and forth. There's no, oh, good job, or interaction. Like if you say something funny, you can't hear the laughter. And
just
for
hope.
me, when I started with the very first live stream, it was really, really weird. It's like, oh, okay, what do I do in this empty space? And eventually I thought I have to bring in my radio training,
Right, right,
which
right.
again, not everyone has that sort of thing. But once I started to think about it from that angle, it made it so much easier.
Yeah. You know what I love about the YouTube shows that I've been doing is that because there is no audience interaction directly, you're not being interrupted by the cash register or the door or the chairs being shuffled or people talking or whatever. So there is a focus that you can have in terms of your performance, and 100% of what you're doing is being projected or presented. Whether the person on the other end is paying full attention is sort of secondary.
Hmm.
However, in the comments section, you can have this wonderful back and forth. And this series that I do every other week called 13 Songs, the comments have become almost its own performance space for people that have tuned in regularly, and they can comment in real time, but it's not disruptive. It's
Right.
so wonderful that I encourage people to just type away and say stuff or comment or request or make an observation or make a joke or whatever, because it's not interrupting me, because I'm just in my living room with the phone 6 feet away. I'm not even looking at myself in the screen. I have it turned around and I'm just performing. So I don't even know what's going on in the comments. I'll have Donna will be here with me, and she'll sort of, if something essential is like, oh, it's not working or the sound's bad, she'll let me know. But otherwise, I let that sort of comment section exist in and of itself, and it's such a wonderful bonus, unexpected bonus to a
Yeah.
performance. is that you get this real-time comment thing happening. That's not disruptive. That it's not someone turning to their friend and saying, "What's this song called? What is this? What album is this on? What is, you know?" That people, even when they want to be interested, sometimes they can be disruptive. Here, it's not disruptive.
It's not at all. No. It's nice to see the people show up too. I think that when they are commenting, and it's funny, this little community happens. And those who, you might have friends who tune in, and some of them might be haven't seen each other obviously in 3-4 months, maybe longer. And they start announcing where they're from. There's a nice little community in that, and they start having their little side conversations, but it's not disruptive to you at all.
Great. Yeah. I mean, I've had high school friends that I haven't seen in 30 years that all of a sudden will tune in and be like, "Hey, it's Brent from, states and states away, who would never be able to come to a bar gig here, and gets to sing an hour." And it's for as troublesome and as difficult this whole situation is, that is a lovely little bonus. And I'm curious as to how much of that will continue and will stretch over past this pandemic situation, because already there's been, I think, initially everybody was doing broadcasts and it was kind of great and people were tuning in. There's been a diminution in the audience, which is to be expected, because there is this kind of Zoom overload, let alone, people are on their Zoom all day with work. Yeah. Maybe the last thing they want to do is be online and watching a screen at 7:00 on a Thursday, which I completely understand. Yeah. But I think an equilibrium will be reached, and that there might be this point that, people know every once a week, twice a month, 3 times a month, there may be this performance, which will be in addition to local performances, which, again, there's nothing better than a live performance in terms of its impact and its effect. When you're moving physical air molecules, there's something special about that. It's something unique in that experience that you don't quite get here. But here, I can perform for someone in California. I can perform for someone, in Australia.
Very true.
It's just sort of, so it's a give and take. And I wonder how much we'll continue doing this once we're back to whatever normal is going to be, whenever that may happen in 2030, whatever
that time is. I don't know. Yeah. I spend a lot of time putting this studio together, so I sure hope I get my energy's worth. Didn't cost me anything, but I sure hope we get my energy's worth out of it. And at least, learning a new skill too. Can you see any of the comments?
Can I see them? No.
Anywhere? Yeah, you can't. I wonder how I can get them so that you can see them.
Feel free to.
I mean, we've got the first person to chime in here, waving to us, is Mr. Bruce Press, saying hello, Bethlehem friends, and hello, Presses, and Bruce. Donna's there. Donna says George's fans absolutely are a community in the comments and have said as much. It's beautiful. Yeah. I'm going to add a little thing down here at the bottom so people know who you are and kind of what we're talking about. This is a fancy little thing we got going on. Would you want to play a song?
Yeah, sure. I could do something.
Yeah, well, go ahead, and I'll just take myself out of here, and you can talk to the people. Hello, Jason. Jason says, "Hey, yo." So I'm out, and you're up. It's all you. Right.
I'll do something I don't often do, but I don't know. Just I haven't done this in a while. It's about losing a friend. Don't believe in heaven. I know that there's no hell. I don't think you've gone anywhere. I guess that's just as well. 'Cause I want to remember the last look in your eye was the best and worst thing. To get to say goodbye to you. They say we're not supposed to comprehend, but I want to know more, being there with you at the end. It's a pain I'd hoped for. Did you know where you were going? Did you like the time you spent Wish that you stayed longer. That's not how it went. Now I know there's no forever, but of all the hearts I've met, I think the place we ended up was as close as one could get. Did you? They say we're not supposed to understand. That doesn't help me. Watching you leave by my own hand, the cards that were dealt me. Some would blame the dealer, some would blame the deal, some would make up stories that never could be real. I hope when you left you were glad to be back home. I think that you knew you would never be alone. I've no need for heaven, some eternal bluff. I prefer what's real, and what we had's gotta be enough. I'm glad I get to miss you, but that you can never miss me. Thinking you'll wake up and see us is your eternity. It's a small comfort. I miss you. I miss you. I love.
Yeah.
Little tune called Small Comfort.
Wow. It's kind of a beautiful, beautiful song. Now, I do know what that song is, what the origin of that song is, but would you say that as a writer, conveying that over the years, it's something that people can take on their own meaning?
Oh, well, hopefully, like anything that's
Yeah.
well done with some kind of intent can be interpreted in a number of ways, and that's the beauty of what we do, whether it's music or art or film or literature or whatever. There's always going to be the person that is actively experiencing the artistic endeavor is going to bring their own luggage to what's going on, and that's kind of part of the beauty of it. But yeah, I mean that is a particularly strong song in terms of its message and its impact on some people, because it's an emotional kind of subject. And I never quite expected that to have the impact it has had on people, which has been the response to that particular song has been, because I'm kind of the quirky joke song guy, which is totally happy with that role. But that was a particularly difficult one to write, and which I sort of almost felt like I had to write. It was about losing a valued friend. And yeah, so people can bring their own thing to it, and that to me is I love it when someone discovers something in a piece that either I wrote or a piece that I even enjoy, like someone else's creation. When someone goes, "Do you ever think about it this way?" and you go, "I never thought that way." That's, oh my gosh, that's wonderful. That to me is, it's like an ever opening flower. Sort of, you can just see the petals in many different ways, and it's all hopefully all lovely and interesting.
Yeah. That's why we talk about this thing, adapting with intent, and to just sit somewhere, like, and I don't mean to sort of overly criticize anybody for what they're doing, but to just sort of phone in just sit somewhere with your guitar and just, oh, I played this song today, and that's that. It might not have the same intent. It might not be received in the same way as you might be thinking that it is. I think this kind of it sort of separates the true art from just maybe the hobby or
I wouldn't want to disparage anyone's attempts at doing
no,
whatever.
no.
The love of what we do is that it's available to anyone on whatever level you're at, and to me, the much more insulting thing is not the person that necessarily may just be doing it as a hobby or as doing it sort of as as a distraction. To me, the more insulting thing sometimes is the professional who is phoning it in.
Yeah.
That to me is much more troublesome, because it's
Yeah.
like it's
Yeah.
regard and a presumption about the audience that the audience is going to be there regardless. That to me is really, really troublesome, when someone
Mhm.
just can be like, yeah, it's good enough. People, whatever. And
That's
that's like, how dare you? How dare you do that?
yes. I completely agree
Yeah.
with that perspective. I did learn how to get the comments up on the screen. So
Mm.
while you were singing, I don't know if you saw them pop on there at all, but aside from Jason and saying, hey ho, we've got Rhonda's calling in from, uh, I know Rhonda, she's a friend I met once. She's in South Carolina.
Oh,
Now,
nice.
let me know if you can see this one.
Oh, good. Oh, Pope Shenouda. There you go. Yes,
I don't
deep.
know. What does that mean?
Well, with my podcast, there's a couple of different ways you can tell me and let me know that you're a fan of my show. It's a shorthand that I developed. Initially, it was the word vibraphone, because what would happen would be I would be at a conference or something, and I'd meet someone, excuse me, and there was always this awkward moment of just like, hey, I listened to your show and I like your show, and like the person would feel weird and I would feel weird. So I said, look, if you listen to the show and you like the show, come up to me and just say vibraphone.
Oh,
That way, you listen, I know you're a fan, and we can just have a conversation. We can just
yes.
move on and have a conversation. Good to go. That then sort of took on a bunch of different. When I was in Australia, that became styrofoam for some reason. I'm not even sure why. And then Pope Shenouda is the deep, deep. If you're really a fan of the show, you say Pope Shenouda, and it's like, that's beyond vibraphone. I won't even explain what Pope Shenouda is, but that was an actual Pope's name, which is amazing. So that basically just says I listen to the show and I enjoy the show, and it's a kind of a fun thing. And then we can just, because I know I'm that way when I meet someone that I'm interested in sharing. Like, I want to say I'm a fan. I like your stuff, and I always feel weird, and it's like I don't want to intrude. So someone can just say vibes or vibraphone. It's like, yeah, cool. Let's chat. Now let's talk about something important. Not that you like my show. Let's talk about anything else.
Vibraphone.
So Todd is being very fun as a big
Yes.
fan of the podcast.
Long
and a
time,
deep,
long
deep
time.
fan, long time.
Yeah.
Same.
What episode are we on?
We just today is going to be 668.
668. Today is, you recorded it today.
I recorded it yesterday, and it'll be
Yesterday.
today.
Today.
I just had the 666th show, which was a Satan-based show, which was really fun. I had a lovely phone
yes, I
call.
saw that.
That was really, really well. I was very pleased.
Satan.
I had a telephone number that I could call, and so I had a conversation with Satan. Unexpected conversation with her, actually, and it was lovely.
Oh, of course. Mm-hmm. It's not your mother, though, right?
It's not my mom. No, she's a separate character.
Yes. Okay, so let's talk about the live stream series that you've been. Is this the YouTube series you're talking about? The 13 songs? Well,
13
there we go. With George.
This is ready for tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
This will be. I always color coordinate every episode with the posters and stuff. But yeah, it was this idea of trying to have some avenue in which to perform, but not just have it be, I'm writing a bunch of songs. So I work very well within a structure, and that's sort of something I've learned about myself, that if I can have a structure, then I can pin things to it it's almost like in a board kind of way, in terms of putting stuff into an order. So I was trying to think. Initially, I thought, I have like 20 songs, and I'll be on like a theme. I'll be like something like, it'll be some kind of theme or a particular artist or something. I thought, well, 20 is maybe too much. Let's do 13. That's kind of a fun number. 13 songs. And episode 6 is tomorrow. So far, we've done obscure 80s. We did an episode with the Police and Sting. It was all Police and Sting songs.
Yep.
I did favorite female singer-songwriters or composers. Then we did a colors one. That was really fun. Every song title had a color in it. Tomorrow, I'm doing a thing called Connections. So every song is going to segue in some way to the next song. It might be a producer that is the same, or an artist that played on one, played on the other, or that they collaborated at some point. And it's going to go, all 13 tunes will kind of reunify with themselves. It was a challenging set list. It was a little more difficult than I thought. I wanted to stay away from very obvious ones. There are some artists that have worked with everyone. And I kind of wanted to stay away from those obvious ones, and found some really fun connections. And to me, it's a fun way to have an opportunity to just like learn songs, because I've been learning songs like a maniac for this thing, which is great.
That was my next question.
Yeah, it's never a bad idea. Songs, even if you're not going to perform them, It's just good to learn
Yeah.
songs, to see how people write them, and to get inside of them and see what you like about them and dislike about them, and what's similar and what's not. And it's just, the response has been really lovely. I've been very, very fortunate. People have been obscenely generous, obscenely generous with their.
Okay. That's the next, I think that's where we can take this now, is to talk about that. If you have a fan base, you have a very loyal fan base from all these things, these areas that we talked about,
Yeah,
um, and they are, as you said, they've been incredibly generous. And I've talked to a couple other people who have said that they're experiencing the same thing. They're doing their thing with some regularity, as you
right.
are, and it's paying off literally for them. Yeah.
It's, I mean, the first couple, especially when this was still sort of all brand new, and I was, I mean, I was expecting a minimal sort of, hoping for a bar gig kind of pay, and
Yeah.
on that it was incredibly generous. It's, it's leveled out a bit, because obviously it has, which I was totally expecting, but it's still,
Yes.
the lowest numbers are still so far above what I ever expected. And I think people understand the predicament that musicians are in.
Hmm.
People appreciate the effort and the idea of, like, I'm not just turning my phone on and playing songs in my kitchen, which there's nothing wrong with
Yeah.
that. People do that too, that's fine. But I think people appreciate that it's a forethought show, and it's like a
Right.
thing, that there's some effort behind it. I think
Yeah.
people appreciate that, and they have been rewarding it with their paper applause, as we call it, the old
Hmm.
ka-ching. It's
That's part of what we were talking about earlier, about somebody, when you've gone to the trouble of you put on a shirt and tie.
right.
Yeah, I went
I see.
upstairs and brushed my teeth before I came down, make sure I didn't have any. I had tabbouleh for dinner. I didn't want any parsley. So yes, exactly. So we're going to that trouble. I got the lights, making sure
Right.
things are right here, so that people know you're taking the time for them
Yeah.
in the same way. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
And
mutual
that's true
respect.
whether that's true whether it's online, or whether it's in a performance space as well.
Anywhere. Hmm.
Again, you need to show that there is a seriousness of intent. You
Yep.
can be silly, do songs that are not serious, but that there is a seriousness of intent, and a respect of the environment that you're in, and the job that you have, which
Yeah.
is, it's, again, it's not a heavy idea, but it's just this question of being moderately prepared for
Hmm.
what you need to do, and people respond to it. And there is just there's a vibe, I think, that kind of comes across of, whether you want to use the word professionalism or whatever, that's kind of a weighted word, but there is an intent, which I think people respect and appreciate. That's something with the funk band all the time that comes across, just like, there is a conscious effort from all 8 or 9 members that are doing their job, of, like, we're doing our job.
Yeah.
This is our job right now. And it's, even though we've maybe playing a song we've played literally 800 times before, there is still an intent and a respect for the environment and what our job is. And I'm really big on that. I'm really big on that.
Yeah. So a lot of people who I've been talking with are sort of down about the whole live stream thing, because they can't make the sound that they need to make over this particular platform. For example, they're really loud. They're big drums and big, um, just big instruments, and it's a sort of a heads flying and the hair is everywhere, and which now for a band like the Funk Authority, you can't all converge in someone's living room
Yeah.
and do that thing. So that has its place. So for you have a role in that band, but you also have this unique, as many of the people in that band don't have, maybe one or two others, I don't know. um, you have the opportunity to continue to make your living and do your profession from your home with little or no difficulty at all.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very fortunate in that,
Yeah.
I mean, I took up guitar in college just because I was interested in it. I've learned more about my home instrument of drums by playing other instruments than I have from playing drums. Something I always tell, young people that are starting, or that are musicians on some level, I always say, learn another instrument. learn another instrument, especially another instrument that you're around. So if you're a bass player, learn to play keyboards or drums. If you're a drummer, I learned more from learning how to play bass. Playing bass in a jazz band in college taught me more about drumming than almost anything else did, because I would be playing and the drummer would be doing something and I was like, that's really cool, or that's really annoying, and I do that. I should not do that because I'm not supporting the band.
Yeah.
So I always say, and again, like learn songs, and there's nothing wrong with that. So yeah, I'm fortunate. I know Dale in the band has been doing some shows. Matt also, player, has an amazing voice. He does a yoga voice thing that he's developed where he teaches vocal lessons. So he's been doing that online.
Yeah.
Andy Schwartz has worked with you, obviously.
Yes.
Wonderful as well. Super talented, super nice guy.
Mm-hmm.
And like what I love about Andy is like his music is so I don't want to say mellow, but there is a vibe to his music which is very peaceful and
very
just
peaceful.
Yeah, you know.
Great
and
word.
This is the best environment for that, where you can play a chill kind of chord sound, or not a voluminous thing. Whereas you go to see Andy sometimes somewhere at a brew pub or something. And it's like, what up?
I want to hear him. Yes.
So it's again this mixed blessing of this this environment that you can play a really chill, quiet thing, and you get all the subtleties of his mandolin playing, or the subtleties of his finger picking guitar. You know, same with you, that you get this, you can have this lovely subtle acoustic thing happening, which is really wonderful. Especially in these times too, where like, you know, I don't want to go hear, for as much as I love a loud metal band, that's not the mind space that I'm in most days. You know, it's just like at the end of the day, I want to hear Andy doing something, you know, some lovely, whatever original acoustic thing that he wrote while sitting on a lake in California.
That's I think for me, that's where the most difficult thing has been, to put together a set list that is meaningful and not repetitive.
Not repetitive.
So not repetitive. Yeah. So
challenge.
Fabulous.
But again, people appreciate that it's not. I mean, even in me, you know, I see who's in the chat here, and I think, okay, I'm not going to do the song I normally would do if I was playing to new people necessarily, because I don't want Todd to hear the same song 40 times. So it's like,
that's very kind of you.
Something I haven't done in a while, and then I'll just mix it up. And it's just, it's sort of always, the squirrels are always in the wheel, you know, and you're aware of your audience, you're aware of your environment and what's going on. And now, especially, like you don't want to do certain songs that would be insensitive to current events, or something that happened that day, or whatever it may be.
Although it's difficult to know what's happened 2 hours ago right now, but things are happening so quickly. So do the squirrels have a song that they would like, that they're thinking of right now?
Oh, I could do another one.
Do another one?
This is
all right.
One more that's sort of a little bit more fun for those people that maybe are out there that don't know my repertoire, whatever. This is a song that I wrote for my niece and nephew a number of years
love
ago.
This one. One of my favorites. All right, George Hrab.
This is called When I Was Your Age. When I was your age, the phone was tied to the wall with a twisty, kinky 3.5-foot cord. It's hard to believe, but it had a ring that could not be turned off or ignored. You couldn't choose the sound of the ring, it was just the sound. We called the phone, we never heard of a ringtone. When I was your age, our video games looked nothing like the illustrations on the box. All of the graphics consisted of nothing more than simple lines and dots. Missiles were just a few pixels, and the jungle swinging guy, he was a stick figure, yeah, nothing bigger. When I was your age, when I was your age, when I was your age, we had this stuff called film. You would stick in a camera before you took a shot, and then you had to wait like a month until you could tell what pictures you got. You would hand the film to a guy in a parking lot who lived in a booth. Oh yes, it's the truth. When When I was your age, you had to wait till the movie was either in the theater or on TV. If you wanted adventure, you couldn't rent adventure, you just had to wait and see. And once you were watching, you couldn't stop or pause or even try to rewind. Hey, we didn't mind. When I was your age, when I was your age, you see me as a grown-up, singing from the stage. I bet you can't believe I was ever your age. I was your age. When I was your age, I love watching Star Wars, but I hear you like Star Wars more than me. I wanted to be Indiana Jones, and Dr. Jones is who you aspire to be. And I loved playing with Lego, and Lego is what you currently build and rearrange. I guess some things never change. When I was your age, I didn't like doing homework, but when it was finished, it always felt real good. I didn't like brushing my teeth, but I brushed my teeth because Bert and Ernie said that I should. I didn't like listening to Mom, though I knew deep inside it was the right thing to do. And hey, so do you. You know what's true before you can say boo. You'll be my age too.
Oh, there we go. George Hrab is my guest here tonight. Here's a comment for you, George. You got to check this one out.
What does that say?
It's Josh Robinson.
Oh, yeah, that was from the 666 episode. I did a cover version of War Pigs because, you know, if you're going to have a satanic-based episode, why not have some Ozzy?
Mm-hmm.
Essential, yeah.
You are all over the board on this. So what a lot of people don't know, and I happen to be in the know on this, is that you went to Moravian College.
Right.
We won't talk about when, but you had a fantastic, and I'm envious of this job you had as the librarian, correct? Music librarian?
Librarian for about a year and a half, and then I was the facility coordinator of the music department for about another year and a half. Yeah. I spent most of my college time in the library, just reading the backs of albums, listening, and reading the backs of the large format records, learning all about who played where and who did what, and so when I graduated, a position opened up, and I sort of applied for it and got it, and I had to digitize the entire catalog there. That was like a 9-month thing. I literally typed every card out of the card catalog into a Macintosh.
Macintosh, not a linotype.
No, yeah, this was
IBM
or something.
Oh, yeah.
And I had to type in every card, and at the end of 9 months, all of a sudden I could type, which I didn't realize I was doing that. That was kind of neat.
Good skills.
But yeah, I loved it. That's part of me is a little bit sort of heartbroken now because that library is a different thing. It's not. They don't have the albums. They don't have the cassettes and the CDs anymore in the same way that they used to. There's just archival material, which is great. And obviously, this is all pre-internet, so that was my internet. That was my streaming service was the library. I would just go there and just listen to everything and anything possible. So, yeah, I love it.
Do you think that you talk about this upcoming 13 songs about connections? Do you think that it's similar, harder, easier to without having the physical, those things that you turn over and you read and you read the credits and you read all that? Do you think that it's the same now to be able to for people who only get their music through streaming services?
Well, the difference now is that I think there is a much different level of ownership with music. When I was growing up and when I would get a cassette or eventually a CD, mostly it was cassettes when I was in my most formative age, I would tear that thing open and I would read whatever liner notes were there, hopefully to get some kind of glean whatever information I could. Yeah, if it was just a one-page thing, it was heartbreaking. I wanted that large fold-out thing. and I would read who the producers were and who the things were, and then I would keep an eye out for magazine articles, and I would learn everything I could learn about the band. Yes, I would watch their videos on MTV
Yeah.
when they were still playing music, and I would and so there was like an effort and a slow educational process of what the band is about. Who's in the band now? Oh, there was another lineup of this band. I didn't realize that. And so there was an ownership. Now, the first second you hear a band, so someone, a young person wants to know about Led Zeppelin, you Google and you go to Wiki and you have the entire history of the band, which
That's
is
true.
wonderful. But the effort is a very different. So the ownership is not the same.
Mm.
I went to the school of Talking Heads. I went to the school of Yes. I went to the school of Frank Zappa, where I gleaned and hunted and found every bit of information, and then saw how they are all the band lineups related to each other. Whereas now you go to the Frank Zappa wiki and you can see, oh, this person was on that record. They didn't play on that record, and this guy played guitar here, and this guy did that. So it's again, every thing has its price. So you want to have all the information available to you. Okay, there's going to be a different kind of fandom. There's going to be a different kind of investment. So that I think that understandably, people that are discovering music today, it's not quite the same kind of ownership.
It's
I
not.
mean, that being said, I would much rather have someone in New Zealand who hears me on a podcast or sees me guest at some other thing go to my wiki page and be like, oh, this guy has 7 albums out.
Yeah.
Not have to wait until I'm on a tour or wait for someone else to say, oh, you can borrow my album, but he can go and or she can go and download whatever they need to do. That to me is the possibilities of that is much wider and grander than the obsessive fan who has to learn slowly. And that you will have, that I will be a Frank Zappa fan forever. I will be a Yes fan forever because, again, I went to school. I went to that academy.
That's it. It was an organic learning.
Yeah.
I have that. I have that with the Carpenters.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
I silly as it is, Karen Carpenter, one of the the drummer in the Carpenters was Cubby O'Brien, and he was an original Mouseketeer.
Oh, Cubby, that's right.
And people look at me like, you're weird. You know that? Yeah, because I read the album. I read it and I followed it.
Right. Although if you look on a young person's, Spotify mix or whatever cloud device is holding their music today, I think you will find younger people have a much more varied palette than
they do.
People our age did when they were because you might see a Burger King commercial that has a cool tune.
Yeah.
Then you hit that little info thing that says, oh yeah, this is the song by this person over here. This is a classic, Earth, Wind and Fire song, whatever. True. That amazes me with a punk band when we start, we'll play some song which is 50, 60 years old at this point sometimes. And 15, 16-year-olds will know all the words. And you go like, how do they know? That? Oh, it was, we did it at school, or it was in that movie, or it's on this web series that I followed. So that's kind of wonderful.
Wow. All right, we got another question here. It's a comment from Bruce Bress. What does he say in here? Well, there's a bunch of YouTube videos of rappers listening to the Carpenters for the first time. That's pretty great.
Those are wonderful videos. There's a whole series of first listens where people who have never heard stuff that to maybe you and me is very sort of basic. Yeah. There's a bunch of Yes ones too that are so fun. These kind of hardcore metal young kids that have never heard some of the more out Yes stuff, and their minds are blown. And it's just great. It's just great to watch. It's great to watch. Have you seen that wonderful Karen Carpenter drum feature where she plays like there's 4 of her and she's accompanying herself on all different drum sets?
I don't think so.
Oh, you got to go on YouTube.
Oh, I'll have to look at it.
Great. Just do like Karen Carpenter drum solo.
Yeah.
And they use process stuff. And so I think at one point there's like 2 of her and maybe 3 or 4 of her. She's playing along on drum sets and timbales, and it's
that was rare for her to play.
Yeah, it's
publicly,
so cool.
And very rare.
Spotless. She's playing like a monster. It's so good. I send people all the time. Go check out this. You guys see this Karen Carpenter thing.
Karen Carpenter in a prom dress, playing the drums.
That's pretty much. Yeah, I think she has a green pantsuit with
pantsuit. It was either pantsuits or a prom dress.
Awesome.
Yeah, one of my favorites. Oh man. All right. Well, hey, we're heading on 45 minutes. I think we've not quite exhausted the topic. We could talk forever, but Do you want to close out with something? Want to close out with a song or
No, I think
wisdom?
that's cool. I'd love to say people to tune into my YouTube
There you go.
channel tomorrow. If they're around, it's Thursday the 18th. If someone's watching this later in the day or whatever, um, yeah, yeah, zip by and check out the 13 songs. And my Geologic podcast happens all the time. And thank you, Dina, for doing this and for asking
Oh,
me to be the first guest on
the
your
first. Well, I knew I
flexing
felt
all.
flexing. I'm flexing too.
Yeah,
Let's
all
go.
day I was getting ready to flex.
It's a backwards image though. I'm moving my right. Yeah. It's even weirder than a mirror looking at at this monitor here.
Right.
Um,
Weather appreciation for weather people that have to like
oh,
point
and
to
you
the
know what we can do too is give each other a, a high
right.
five.
Bam.
Boom. Okay. I gotta learn how to do that. Um, yeah. So next
Totally.
week, I'm totally seems like I'm gonna be on a roll on Wednesdays with this. So next week I've got Amy Putlock. She is the Brockle Middle School um, music teacher, choral director. We're going to talk about how this has affected choral arts in particular and musical theater in the school. And from there, we also have Ryan Hill from Arts Quest Comedy and Cinema Programming. I'm going to talk about that comedy. And who else do I have coming up? JP Jordan from Touchstone Theater. We're going to talk with JP. And back up all the way up to July, we got Natalia Zuckerman and Aaron McEwen, and maybe Matt the electrician on in the round. Four of us will be on the screen talking, and those folks are up there. This is what they do all the time. So anyway, thanks, George.
Thank you. Be
See
safe.
you, all you. All right.
Okay.
Cheers,
Thanks.
everybody. We'll see you soon. Bye. Maybe I'll try to play that thing again as we cut out of here.
Intro, outro. Yeah.
Intro, outro, and remove